Doctor Who, a British icon once lost to time in the cutthroat world of television. Inventive antagonists with deeper meaning, reduced to a joke. One of the greatest science fiction inventions ever, turned into a way of describing a cupboard which is slightly bigger than expected. A show that was loved by many, but sadly not enough, with the BBC letting the show rest with no hope of regeneration. Being a Doctor Who fan as the 20th century drew to a close must have been tough with no new episodes. Spare a failed revival in the form of the Paul McGann TV movie and numerous strange animations. It must have felt like there was no hope of hearing the blue box's unmistakable sound of ancient engines wheezing and groaning ever again. Now in 2019, it's hard to imagine a time without Doctor Who, the latest series proving popular among critics and fans alike, paired with a range of merchandise from books to action figures and even clothing. Doctor Who is talked about by loads of people every day, and the anticipation for the next series, and the next, and even the next, is ever growing. Doctor Who seems to be the show that since being woken up is determined to never sleep. The fact Doctor Who is a show that is being talked about over half a century since its first episode proves it to be as strong as ever. However, this wouldn't have been possible after the cancellation in 1989 if it wasn't for the revival. This is the unlikely story of a gritty northern actor, a pop singer, and a Welsh writer working with a crew of fantastic people to bring the Time Lord back to our televisions. This is the story of how Doctor Who came back. Now every TV series goes through a great level of preparation before it hits our screens, from scripting to set design, casting, filming and editing. It takes many people to craft a series loved by the viewers, and like pretty much every series, bringing Doctor Who back started with a pitch. Now before the success that brought about the revival in 2005, there was another pitch by Life on Mars co-creator and writer of what was a future episode of Doctor Who, Fear Her, by Matthew Graham. He started in an interview printed in Doctor Who The Inside Story, that he would probably change too much, going for a darker tone with an older Doctor and every story being 2 or 3 parts long. He even considered changing the design of the TARDIS completely. So that is the version of the show we never got to see. However, in the 1990s, critically acclaimed writer Russell T Davies thought he would have a go at bringing Doctor Who back. Russell later called these ideas so flimsy it wouldn't even bear thinking about today. With this pitch turned down, Russell went away still with the urge to revive Doctor Who in his mind and in his heart. In 1999, a meeting took place between Russell and Patrick Spence, an executive at BBC Drama Department. Sadly, nothing came of this meeting. Then, a while later, he found himself in another meeting with Laura Mackie, an executive producer. In this meeting, which was just a conversation rather than a pitch, Russell made it clear he wanted to bring Doctor Who back, suggesting the brilliance of having dinosaurs walking down the streets of 21st century London, or a ruthless game of the future weakest link. Laura and the rest of the BBC, however, wanted Russell to focus his talents elsewhere, adapting stories or writing new originals. Russell went away, again, defeated. Before he had even made a single pitch to the BBC, he was contacted by David Richardson to write a book as part of the new Doctor Who Adventures series. Titled Damaged Goods, it was published in October 1996, a novel showcasing Russell's talent and ideas for the series in the form of one story. If we fast forward to the early 2000s now, Jane Tranter struck a deal with the then controller of BBC One, Lorraine Heggessey. The BBC wanted to bring Doctor Who back, to have their own original drama broadcast on a Saturday night. And after Alan YENTOB had sorted out the rights issues with 20th Century Fox and Universal after the production of the TV movie, Doctor Who was the BBC's once again. So with the stage set, who would be up to the task of bringing back such an icon, while throwing it into the 21st century? There was only one name that came to mind: Russell T Davies. Now, the show was originally going to be revived as a 6-episode long series. This was standard for many BBC dramas, even still a common trend today. BBC Worldwide then suggested a 13-episode long series to make it more appealing to overseas buyers. Now, this caused anxiety among the team of each episode to spare a few two-parters being standalone stories. So with some of the basics sorted out, many questions remained unanswered, and one of the most important was, where was it going to be made? Long gone were the days of filming everything at Television Centre's many studios. This would be a monumental project requiring lots of space, with not much time, and many brilliant minds. Julie Gardner and BBC Wales. Now, Julie had been working on a TV series with Russell called Casanova, starring this fairly unknown Scottish actor named David Tennant. Now, with Julie and Russell already knowing how each other worked, it seemed like a brilliant idea to keep the team together. In July 2003, Julie became the head of BBC Wales Drama, and was ready to work on Doctor Who. Now, she had never made a 13-part series before. In all honesty, not many people had. So Mao Young was brought in as a co-executive producer to keep things running smoothly in brilliant fashion. With all this sorted, Doctor Who had found its home, and BBC Wales had found its feet with the show moving to Cardiff. The area was great for local talent too, although they weren't afraid to ask for outside help like the visual effects company The Mill, which were based in London. Now, Cardiff also provided the home to many studio-based scenes from the inside of the TARDIS, the home of the Doctor's companion, and was used as a creative space for using a green screen and many other items. Many interior sets were set up within a single space. This space was Unit Q2, a warehouse on the 350-acre Imperial Park industrial estate. Now, this building wasn't exactly used during the first month of filming, instead scenes on location held priority, but more about that later. Now, Q2, for all the help it provided, it still lacked in levels of soundproofing and catering, almost calling back to the very first episode of Doctor Who filmed in the problematic Lime Grove studio. So, with the very first basics worked out, it was time to announce to the world that Doctor Who was coming back. This was first reported on the BBC News website on Friday the 26th of September 2003 at 8:56 AM. The headline was simply, Doctor Who returns to TV. The article lacked in solid information such as casting, budget and episode numbers, but honestly, who cared? Doctor Who was coming back and it couldn't be more exciting. One of the main things to take away from the article were the quotes from Davies, saying, "New series will be fun, exciting, contemporary and scary." Although I'm only in the early stages of development, I'm aiming to write a full-blooded drama which embraces the Doctor Who heritage at the same time as introducing the characters to a modern audience. So Doctor Who's return to TV was now public knowledge, and the levels of anticipation were at an all-time high. No pressure then. With Doctor Who's return announced to the world, the BBC were interested to know what the series was shaping up to be. So Russell worked to craft a large document called a treatment. The pages included a rough overview of the main characters and the synopsis of each episode. In the autumn of 2003, this was shown to the BBC. Many items on the treatment were changed during the scripting process. A few notable ones were Mickey originally being called Mopsy. In episode 3, set in 1860, gas creatures threaten the Earth and the Doctor takes Rose back to 2005 halfway through the adventure, revealing a dystopian landscape, proving to the viewer the world can end in 1860. And also, as a small joke, episode 6 featured a man called Will Fences in reference to Bill Gates. The treatment was always a rough idea, and the changes formed over time really did work well to craft a very strong series. If you want to check out the original treatment annotated by Russell himself, I strongly recommend the Doctor Who Companion Series 1, which features the treatment and many other great details. With the BBC happy with the series ideas, it was time to select the writers for the new series. With Russell holding the role as showrunner, he had set the foundations for a variety of stories. He had the tone of each episode worked out and the key words that needed to be considered, such as episode 9 and 10, the script, and the word romantic. Stephen Moffat, a long-time fan of the show, was one of the first asked to join the writing team, and would write 2 scripts to form 2-part stories set in World War II. Now, Russell T Davies would write 8 of the 13 scripts, including the series opener and finale, as well as multiple 2-part stories featuring a variety of characters, creatures, and time periods. The remaining 3 scripts were written by long-term fans Mark Gatiss, who would write episode 3, set in Victorian times, Robert SHEARMAN, who would be tasked with writing The Return of the Daleks, and Paul Cornell, who would write the heartfelt episode where Rose meets her dead father. The writing team was incredibly solid, with some of the best names and best written scripts imaginable. Stories of the series varied quite significantly in tone, with the production team showcasing the various genres inhabited by Doctor Who. Examples included the pseudo-history story The Unquiet Dead, the far-future whodunit of The End of the World, Earthbound alien invasion stories in Rose and the Aliens of London World War III, Base Under Siege in Dalek, and Horror in The Empty Child. Even the spin-off media were represented, with Dalek taking elements from writer Rob Shearman's own audio play Jubilee, and the emotional content of Paul Cornell's Father's Day, drawing on the tone of Cornell's novels in the Virgin New Adventures line. Davies had asked both Sherman and Cornell to write their scripts with these respective styles in mind. Alban Rowlands and Helen Rayner served as script editors of the series. They were hired simultaneously, marking the first time Doctor Who had female script editors. Rowlands left after the first series for Life on Mars. Now, compared to the original series, the role of the script editors was significantly diminished, with the head writer taking most of the responsibilities. Unlike the original series, they do not have the power to commission scripts. Instead, they act as liaisons between the production staff and the screenwriter, while passing their joint work to the head writer for the final polish. Rayner said that the job is not a creative one. You're part of it, but you aren't driving it. Now, who would be responsible for making the writer's visions come to life, bringing the story from script to our screens? The important job of director was given to Keith BOAK for episodes 1, 4 and 5 in Block 1, Euros Lynn for episodes 2 and 3 in Block 2, Joe Ahem was directing episodes 6 and 8 in Block 4, while Bryan Grant directed episode 7 in Block 5, and Block 6 saw James Hayes direct episode 9 and 10, and finally Joe Ahem directed Block 6 with episode 11, 12 and 13. This 13-part series had gained the talent of many talented directors, ready to introduce Doctor Who to a brand new generation. So, with the writing team and the directors now confirmed, the characters created, the ideas were finally formed. It was time to put them into reality. One of the first priorities was creating the Doctor's iconic ship, the TARDIS. What would the show be, and in fact what would the Doctor be, without it? This was the job given to a team of people including Matt Savage, Dan Walker and Colin Richmond. Brian Hitch was employed on a part-time basis as a design consultant. This was all overseen by the production designer Edward Thomas. This team of people were given the impossible task of reinventing an icon for the 21st century, and they were full of ideas. Using scans from a variety of books, I've gathered a collection of sketches used during the creation of the iconic interior. The dome shape was apparent from the very beginning, but the first designs featured two floors which much like works, like the Michael Pickford designs which he would go on to create. Unlike the majority of past TARDIS designs, the team wanted to have a glass column at the centre of the console to reach all the way to the ceiling. The column is often called a time rotor, but this name is often contradicted. An idea that never made the cut was to have the TARDIS interior span outwards into numerous conservatory-like rooms. The designers were uncertain as to what these rooms would be, but ideas thrown around were a lab, a wardrobe, and a living accommodation. These ideas were soon taken away due to the additional costs. However, we did get to see the Doctor's wardrobe in the 2005 Christmas special. The arches were always a feature in the design, and are one of the first things I imagine when I think of the finished design. And after many redesigns, the changes and final design was established. The TARDIS was finalised, and the brilliant mix of ancient and organic technology working in unison to form one of the favourite TARDISes I've ever seen. The set was built from a mixture of metals, woods and plastics, each element created and then placed together within Unit Q2. As part of Doctor Who Confidential, a time-lapse video was released showing the creation of the TARDIS set, as well as numerous behind-the-scenes photos. The design for the iconic box's exterior was created by Colin Richmond and was constructed during the summer of 2004. The production team built two TARDIS props for use in the series. These props could be seen under construction in several images taken in late June, early July of 2004. The design team went on to make many other great pieces for the show. Matthew Savage designed the villainous Cassandra O'Brien for episode 2. Mike Tucker went on to design the epic Emperor of the Daleks for episode 13. Neil Gorton worked on designing the Sly Slovene for episode 4, 5 and 11, while Dave Houghton worked on designing the Blazing Blitz London for episode 9 and 10. All of the work that goes into designing all the sets and creatures really makes the show what it is. Absolutely fantastic. On the 11th of November 2003, it was announced to the public that BBC Wales would be producing Doctor Who. This was soon followed by the news on the 8th of December 2003 that there would be 13 episodes in the series. With the storylines now set and the designs for the sets worked out, it was time to put a face behind the name of each character. it was time to cast Doctor Who. Andy Pryor was the man tasked with the mission of being casting director for the series. First things first, they needed to cast the Doctor. Andy, Julie and Russell talked for hours, writing lists with dozens of names on. Who could be the face of the new era, change the perception of Doctor Who from a joke to a drama with gravitas? It had to be a well-renowned actor who was skilled at their craft. Many names were considered. One notable name was Rowan Atkinson, who played the Doctor as part of the comic relief sketch in 1999. One name they kept coming back to was Christopher Eccleston. But would he play the part of a cosmic hero? Was it his kind of role? Well, that was swiftly answered when Christopher sent an email to the BBC inquiring about the role. Just over a week later, Christopher was invited for a screen test in BBC Manchester, where they would record a few small scenes with Chris to see if he was the Doctor. Julie acted as Rose during the screen test, which saw them act out 3 scenes from the first episode. The team were incredibly happy with the performance, sending it away to Jane Tranter and Lorraine Heggessy, who were both delighted. Phil Collinson then asked Christopher if he could play the role, and after a few days of deciding whether or not to tackle one of, if not the most iconic role in British television history, he said yes. Christopher Eccleston was the Doctor. Eccleston had a brilliant understanding of the character, getting into the mind of the Doctor and really getting what he was all about. Many of the directors were uncertain at first due to some of the more comedic moments in the script, and Eccleston being seen as a serious actor. But were soon convinced, and who can blame them, much like William Hartnell taking part in Doctor Who back in 1963. Actors are full of surprises. On the 20th of March 2004, after lots of anticipation and rumours, it was time to announce the new Doctor to the world. Christopher Eccleston is the Doctor. That's all we have time for in this video, so join me tomorrow to find out how Rose and her family were cast, exclusive details from the costume, sound and effects departments, the story of how the Daleks near extermination from the show, and the fantastic facts and photos as filming of the series began. All this and more in How Doctor Who Came Back Part 2, coming soon.